Check. Check 1, 2, check. Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. The Coffee and Biscotti Show. I'm your host, Crew Mel Bellissimo. Today is Friday, July the 2nd, 12 p.m. EST. And man, do I have a great show for you today. But as always, I like to do a little check-in before we get rolling. I hope wherever you are in the world, you are enjoying this beautiful day. This morning, I had a dear friend, my dear friend Albert, who came to visit, and we went for an hour and a half walk off to Petrie Island, which is a beautiful island, just 2 kilometers of where I live. Hello, Albert. I'm just talking about you. How about that, huh? And we went for this incredible walk, and it was just wonderful to be able to connect to Mother Earth in the way of water and rock and sand, and experience sharing energy between 2 people that care for each other. And so I hope that wherever you are in the world, that you have an opportunity to take a moment out of your busy day and share some energy with somebody that you care about and that cares for you. There's been a lot of that energy going on, certainly after the strawberry moon last week. And I guess that I'm very introspective these last couple of weeks. I feel great, feeling good, feeling very calm, but very introspective. And I think that's because there's some shifting, some changing of vibrational frequency. And when we talk about frequencies, we talk about all sorts of things. We talked that this week I put a message up on my social media about how the way that you learn to survive may not be the way you want to continue to live. And that got a lot of sort of comments and likes on social media, because I think many people can resonate with that. We are all experts at surviving. But if we want to be able to move and change vibrational frequencies, we have to do something, and we do that through something called self-love. So in the video that I posted, I talked a little bit about how if you're in some kind of pain, you don't have to do it yourself. That there are people around you that can help, that can share their knowledge, their experience, their wisdom, so that they can help you in getting to where it is that you want to be in your life, and starting to and begin living the life that you desire most. We've got to stop pretending that life just is one way, or it's just a certain way that we're supposed to get a good job, or get a good education, find a good pensionable job, find a partner, have 2.2 kids, and then work for 30, 40 years, buying stuff that when you go, you don't even take with you anyway. So you basically rent it for a few years. Which is the perfect segue to my guest today. So this beautiful goddess who will be with us today, I'm very honored and very lucky to call a friend. I'm trying even to think about how many years it's been that I've known this woman, but let's just say it's a lot. And what an absolute ray of sunshine this woman is. The story is, I walk into my bank with my little cheese cutter's hat, and there's this bright shining light at a table. And, she's dressed up nice, and she's very pretty. And I walk into the bank, and I got to check out who's in the bank. So they have tables set up because it was an opportunity for for people to meet the businesses of the neighborhood. And so I walked in and I meet this woman, and man, instant connection. Why? Why the instant connection? Well, because I think that in terms of frequency, that myself and this woman, we have a frequency that is within the same range. This woman is a naturopathic doctor that graduated at the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine. She's an international doctor and has worked on continents all over the world, with a background that'll make your head spin. There's so much in there. I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know what really to call her, because she's born in Nairobi, Kenya. And I'm going to let her tell you all this, but there's a lot of stuff going on here. A truly international woman, if you will. But she went and had an opportunity to study in the Dominican, came back to Toronto, of course, where we met. Met her husband, moved to South Africa, is now, we are doing this chat live from Dubai, UAE. And her, she's now with her husband in Saudi Arabia. I mean, really? Like, I don't even know how many different countries I said. And anyway, there's a lot going on. But I'll tell you one thing. If you're watching today, my friends, I just want you to know this. You're in for a treat. This woman is a monster of energy. She is just an absolutely fantastic woman. She's full of knowledge. And there are small things that people will say that really get to you. And so you know what got to me? That in her bio she sent me, you know what she wrote? That every patient for me is a teacher. And I was like, that's the shit right there. For the martial arts world, is if you're a black belt, that doesn't mean that you can't learn from a white belt. And this is what this woman does. She's an incredible woman who really shares her passion with the world, literally with the world. Traveling, registered and certified in 3 different countries to be a naturopathic doctor. Not 1, 3. So here's what I got to say. Open up your hearts today. Listen with your heart, because there's so much to talk about with this woman. And I know that there may be just one thing that she says that will resonate with you. And that may be something that sparks something in your heart and in your life. So ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are in the world, get off of your comfortable seat and put your hands together for the one and the only Dr. Faryal Luhar.
How amazing to be with you and this audience. Thank you, Mel, so much.
You're awesome.
You really have to have music next time.
I'm working on it. Putti Nation, did you hear that, buddy? We have to figure out this whole music thing. I was going to sing today, ba-da-ba-ba-da, some kind of jingle. I
want to feel like one of those boxers coming in, ready to, right? With the music.
That's right.
I need some hip hop or something in the background.
Nice. Well, first of all, can I call you Faryal and not doctor?
Well, of course. I mean, you can't even remember how many years we've been friends. So yeah.
It's well over a dozen.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely more than a decade, that's for sure.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. That's a long time. That's right. Albert says Dr. Faryal Luhar fighting out of the red corner. I love it. Yeah, to match her lipstick. So listen, Faryal, I want to say this. First of all, we haven't caught up like this in a long time, and what an absolute pleasure to be able to do this live on the Coffee and Biscotti show. And just to clarify, you're in Dubai right now, right?
I'm in Dubai with the heat and the humidity. Yes, and the desert. Yeah.
Excellent. So I want to explain to you first why you're such a good fit for this show, because that's important. And this is the kind of thing that I share every week on the show. But the people that I bring, Faryal, that are here on the show are people that are sharing their story of transformation and their stories of passion. You see people all over the world. And I know that many people are stuck in a belief system, even when it comes to health. They rely on Western kind of medicine to help with problems. And of course, we're going to talk a little bit about that, about the difference between Western and Eastern medicine and how maybe there should be some sort of blend of the two. But I did this show and I started this platform because I wanted to share these stories of such powerful people. And you're a powerhouse, Faryal, let's face it. We've all known that. Anybody who knows you knows that you're a powerhouse. You're just this powerful goddess energy. You've really worked on women's health. But take us back. Take us back first. Paint us a picture of this dynamic upbringing, and paint a picture for the audience. Who is Faryal Luhar?
Wow, loaded question. Yeah. Thank you, first of all, for the awesome introduction and, just packaging it up so nicely, because it is kind of all over the place, literally, right? But, if I start from the beginning, Mel, I was born in Nairobi, Kenya, as you said, to parents who were also born in Nairobi, Kenya, whose grandparents were born, they were born in Mombasa, which is on the coastal side of the country, whose parents, so my grandparents are also from East Africa. My grandmother is from Zanzibar. And they ended up there because their ancestors, who were from India, were brought over by the British as laborers, and then they stayed. And so my ethnicity is Indian, and it's very much alive and very much vibrant in my upbringing. I speak 2 different Indian languages. We love Indian food. We do all the Bollywood stuff, right? Love it. Gotta love it, right?
Right.
But, Kenya was obviously a big part of who I am. Like, there's a saying out there that you can take the girl out of Africa, but you can't take the Africa out of the girl, Unfortunately, however, I lost my dad. My dad passed away when I was 11 in 1986. And it became extremely difficult for us to continue living there. My mom didn't feel good with the political situation. And so somehow she managed to just collect the 3 of us and immigrate to Canada. For me, I still cannot quite fathom how my mother did that within a year of my dad passing away, because we didn't know a single soul. We didn't know anybody living in Canada. And it was a complete upheaval. I've just lost a very, very major person in my life who was like an anchor. And now we're in a new country and we have all this new stuff that we have to deal with. So she's very much my hero. And I think that my mom was sort of the guiding force for many things that took place after. And so then Canada became our forever home, our second home, and very much a proud Canadian, I stayed there for many, many years. My whole family still lives in Canada, yeah. And as you and I met when I was practicing in Toronto. So interestingly, I knew that I was going to be in the medical field. I'd always wanted to be in the medical field. So interestingly, I'll just share this with you, though. When I was growing up, every time someone, when you're asked the question, what are you going to be when you grow up, right? And I always used to say, well, either a doctor or a flight attendant.
A doctor or
right?
a flight attendant?
Or a flight attendant. Like, little did I know that I might end up actually going back and forth and all over the place, in a way doing both, right? But I just always loved how the flight attendants looked so beautiful and so proper in their uniforms. They were so pretty and it just seemed so glamorous. So, I graduated with a bachelor in psychology from the University of Western Ontario in London. And I didn't want to continue too much going further in there. So I started to go towards the direction of pharmacy. And then I thought, no, something's wrong here. Like, believe it or not, I was thinking about becoming a pharmacist. And I thought, no, doesn't make sense. These people are just giving people more drugs and more drugs and more drugs. And all I see is more people coming to get more drugs for the side effects of the initial drugs that they were taking for their initial problems. And so where is the resolution? Like, I couldn't understand where is the resolution. I had a few family members who were also just getting sicker and sicker. And I thought something's not right here. And then intuitively, I started, looking into other avenues. And there were a few what I would call catalysts in my life, my sister being one of them, who introduced me to like natural medicine, the world of natural medicine. And so then I never looked back. And I went ahead and, graduated from the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine in 2003. I went to work in the Dominican Republic for a year after that, just because I wanted to experience the world. It was something where I really wanted to enjoy and embrace learning about people and cultures and languages and what are they using for medicine. And I was able to learn Spanish like within 6 months, because where we were situated, the Holistic Health Center was in the mountains just outside of Puerto Plata. If any of you guys have been to the Dominican, nobody spoke English. So I had to learn Spanish quick time. So that was great. That was awesome. And then, I came back. I practiced in Montreal for a year. So je parle français aussi, right?
Wow.
And then I basically from there went to continue working in Canada. And I then met my husband-to-be and decided to get married in South Africa, in Cape Town. And we ended up setting up a practice there, which I continue to this day. Most recently, I've been working in Dubai, and my husband then got an offer to work in Saudi Arabia. So we thought, okay, we'll do that and give him his opportunity. And so now I'm a consulting doctor. So I reside in Saudi Arabia with my husband, but I come and go to Dubai every month to treat patients and to educate and to do my thing. So yeah, and I'm so sorry to do this, but I need to plug my laptop in. Can you give me 30 seconds?
Do it. Because I think that what's most remarkable for me is that I don't even know where to begin with all of that. I mean, that's a lot of stuff. I mean, Albert, I really appreciate you saying, yeah, Dr. Faryal has the travel and glamour well covered. And it's very true. And in my experience, I will share a story about working together with Dr. Faryal Luhar. I had a student that went to the UFC in 2014. And prior to that, he was fighting sort of on a local circuit, or at least a Canadian circuit. And she, I don't know if you guys knew this, but what would happen is the fighters would lose so much weight before a fight. So for example, if he was fighting in the 155 category, we would manage how much weight could be lost. So a fighter could lose about 11 pounds in 90 minutes. So my student would lose 11 pounds of water in 90 minutes. So we'd go to the weigh-in, he'd weigh in at 155 pounds. And then what would happen is that someone like Dr. Faryal Luhar would come and do intravenous and put the saline solution in so that they could rehydrate. So I don't know if you knew that, but that's what goes down in the MMA world. And of course, I had the pleasure of working with Madame Luhar. So that's sort of one experience that I wanted to share.
But I also did acupuncture for you guys, remember?
That's right. I know you did so much. Absolutely. So let's go back for a minute. So you did all these things. You got married. Now you're settled into Saudi Arabia with a practice in South Africa, but a consultant in Dubai.
Correct. Exactly. So yeah, so it worked out beautifully. I got to be in these different places and experience these different cultures and people and, learn more about the medicine. The beauty of what I do is I think that I can take it anywhere I go, basically. And it's been wonderful. And so, yeah, I'm very proud to be able to say that I'm licensed in Canada and in South Africa and in Dubai. However, I'll be clear that I don't actively practice in Canada right now. And it's been awesome to be able to, just learn from my patients, because you have to imagine different regions also produce different kinds of, like, the conditions that people are experiencing are different from region to region. Although right now, I think all of us globally, we're all dealing with this one virus that, that obviously has taken over. But I was telling you earlier that, I was in the elevator with somebody today, and they were just laughing because they were trying to figure out where I was from. And they're like, but your name is Arabic. You're Faryal. That's Arabic. I'm like, yes, it's Arabic because I'm Muslim. Okay, but you're actually Canadian. Yes, I'm Canadian, but you're married to a South African. I'm like, yes, I'm married to you know.
Oh my God.
They're like, but you look very Indian. I'm like, yeah, I'm Indian.
Hey, there's a minestrone soup of cultures. I love it. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
but he did point out to me, he's like, but you don't have, your accent is, it's different, eh? Your accent. I'm like, yeah, it's because I'm also Canadian.
awesome. So, Faryal, tell us a little bit about, like, because I still think that there's a lot of people that still want to know, like, you're a doctor, but you're a naturopathic doctor. What does that mean? What would be the difference? Is there a difference?
There's a big difference. Thanks for asking that. There's a huge difference. And, there are some major philosophical differences. The first being that conventional medicine, which they call traditional medicine, which I don't like using that word, because I think what I do is actually traditional medicine because it's been around for centuries and centuries, right? But Western medicine is largely symptom based. So you have a headache, I think you already know what the doctor is going to prescribe. You have a tummy ache, the doctor is going to give you some drug to stop it. You got a fever, you're going to take something to stop the fever. The difference is that the naturopathic perspective is that those symptoms are messages that the body is sending you to tell you that something's out of balance. So I always, use the analogy that if your roof is leaking and you've got water coming down from the roof, if you went to see a conventionally trained doctor, now not all of them, but generally based on their training, what they would say to you is just put a bucket under the leak. Just keep collecting the water. And once the bucket gets full, get another one, get a refill, right? What would be the smarter thing to do?
To patch the hole in the
Yeah.
roof.
Hello, here comes the naturopath, right? So we figure out what is the reason that the leak is happening? Where is it coming from? And we look to uncover the root cause. And once you figure out the root cause and you fix that, then the symptoms, which are the messages telling you that something's wrong, those symptoms will then disappear, because symptoms are basically our body conversing with us if we would only listen. So there is a saying that says, if you don't listen to your body when it's whispering to you, you will definitely listen when it's screaming at you, right? The other difference is that we use natural medicines and natural therapies because we come from nature. And so we are appealing, one of the fundamental naturopathic philosophies is that you are appealing to your body's built-in resources to heal itself. We all have an inherent doctor within us. Everybody's a doctor. They've just got to let their body do the doctoring, and they've got to listen, and they've got to be able to then, allow the body's own resources to fix itself. And we do that because if we give you natural things, you will respond to it better, and usually without side effects,
Right.
So those are some of the things that are the differentiating factors. However, it's not to say conventional medicine doesn't have its place. It certainly does. It's helped humankind to be able to expand our lifespans significantly. It's there for all kinds of emergency procedures. I mean, God forbid you walk out and you get hit by a car, don't come see me, right? Go to emerge.
Right.
But the problem is that we are, in the history of humanity, Mel, we are the sickest that we've ever been. With all of the resources and technologies and advancements that we have, cases of diabetes, cases of cancer, cases of heart disease, all these things. Look at the COVID virus and all the people that succumbed to it, right? Tragically. Why? Why is that? right? These are the questions that I get to then sort of excavate with every single patient to understand, why are you now having this diagnosis? What brought us to this place? And how do we now slowly, like an onion, peel off those layers? And the other beauty of naturopathic medicine is we don't just treat the physical, we treat the mental, the emotional, the environmental, the genetic, the spiritual, because all of these things are connected. And if you're having an imbalance in your mental, emotional health, it's going to manifest physically if you don't address it.
So is everybody ready to sign up? Just to contact Dr. Faryal Luhar. Wow. We've got a wonderful woman on with us tonight, or tonight for you, Faryal, in the donatician, who's a dietitian, who's with us today. So it's really great. That's powerful. I can do the mic drop now. That's it. What's the difference between naturopathic medicine and Western, or what do they call it? Traditional.
Traditional.
Yeah, here, done. Thank you. Finish the show. That's really powerful. And I just want to give a little credit to Josh in his wittiness. He says, instead of the root cause or the roof cause, as the case may be. So very good, Josh. You're always
very funny. I'll have to use that next time. I just gave a talk yesterday to a corporate company. And it was very interesting because I used the same analogy. And, of course, everybody chimed in when I said, what's the smarter thing to do? They all know. Everybody knows what's the smarter thing to do, right?
Yeah.
But still, as I went through my talk, there were 2 or 3 people that were like, no, but, we have to empathize with the conventional doctors because that's their training. They've been studying for 8-9 years, and I said, really? And how many years do you think I studied?
Yeah.
And do you think I had to study what they studied along with what I need to know about botanical herbs and Chinese medicine and homeopathy and lifestyle and nutrition and all the upcoming trends? I mean, I am so lucky right now to be working in a clinic in Dubai, Mel, where we are doing all the sort of cutting edge treatments. We're doing stem cell IVs. We're doing intravenous infusions. You spoke about the MMA fighters that I was rehydrating. We are doing stuff that's way advanced with helping people in terms of anti-aging and not just living and surviving, as you said, not just surviving. It's about really getting to your full potential and optimal, thriving. That's what we want. But, naturopathic medicine is also amazing because in my toolkit, I have something for everybody. So each person who comes to me, I could have 10 people who come to me with headache. Each of them is going to leave with a completely different protocol because we respect biological individuality, and the root cause of why that person's having a headache is not going to be the same in each person, even if they were twins, right? Secondly, it's also about the fact that when we're looking at a person as an individual, we can see nowadays we have access to looking at their DNA. This is a tool I did not have when I first met you, where I can look at a person's DNA and I can say, listen, based on the blueprint of the genes that you inherited from your mom and your dad, you are set up right now with your current lifestyle to get disease A, B, C, or D. But the good news is that if we start intervening with lifestyle, nutrition, and natural medicines, we can change that trajectory so you don't have to get that diagnosis of prostate cancer or breast cancer or what have you. So it's very much preventive. It's always been preventive, but now even more so.
Wow. Well, I love what Putin Nation really said. Yeah, but they've been studying where to poke the bucket for 8 years.
Exactly.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And Albert really appreciates the analogy of the leaky roof, and and the donatician says, yeah, the body keeps score. I love the way you put, if it's whispering to you, sometimes we don't hear the body, but to me that's a metaphysical thing. Yeah. That's because the truth is that if we're not hearing the body whisper, it's because we have too much noise in our head and we're not listening.
We don't want to listen. Sometimes we just don't want to.
Yeah.
There's
Absolutely.
too much going on. I mean, I've had people say to me, oh, Dr. Faryal, I don't have time to go to the toilet. I just go to the toilet during the day when they're working, to go have a bowel movement, which I'm sorry that I just brought this from nowhere, but we talk a lot about digestive health, and
of course,
I can talk about poop all day long,
That's right.
unfortunately. But my point is, when I'm assessing a person and I'm asking them how their body as a machine or as a factory is working, you're putting things in. So things need to come out that are not needed. And there are people who actually say to me, I don't have time for that. I've got too much going on. So I just ignore the signal. So what do you think is going to happen in the long run? Because your body is trying to detox and you're not letting it.
Yeah, there's going to be a backup, a major backup.
A major toxic backup. Yeah.
That's right. It's going to require a serious plumber.
Among other things. Yeah, exactly.
Right? But see, this is all very interesting because like I love the fact that your approach, and this has been really since I met you, that it really integrates a really natural way of dealing with it, but also touching not just on the physical, but on the emotional and the mental, the spiritual. That's really important to me. You don't get that, and I was saying to Albert this morning that you're the kind of woman that when you mention the word doctor, the first thing I think about, Faryal, is I think about some stuffy waiting room where you have magazines so you can wait while the guy who's making all the money, the doctor, tells you can come in because he's higher up on the pay on the food chain. I hate it. You don't even know I hate it. I want to go to a doctor. I want to give him one of these. Like, what do you know? You think because you went to university that all of a sudden you studied in a book you know? No, man. You don't know. You know how to put the bucket underneath the water for 8 years. That's what you studied. But tell me about mental health. Tell me about spiritual health. Because if you incorporate spiritual and mental health with it, you become healthier. You know, somebody said this to me once, Faryal, and I'd like to share it with you, and maybe you can speak more to it. But I was telling you when we spoke the other day about how there was this person that came on the show, an old student who's a fruitarian. And I was talking about this, and I actually spoke to the donatician about this as well. But he's a fruitarian, and he has a belief. He went into great detail about we're not carnivores. We're not built like carnivores. We don't have the teeth like a carnivore. He's going through all of this stuff, but his health is in, he said something, and he talked about there is a huge difference between fitness and health. Bodybuilders are very fit, but that doesn't mean that they're healthy. Correct. So can you maybe speak on that a little bit about fitness or health and understanding the difference?
Sure. I mean, and that's a really good way of looking at it, because we know that we've encountered in my practice many skinny fat people, right? We've heard this term before. And what does that mean? So it's talking about the internal environment of your body. And unfortunately, Mel, we live in a society, and this is getting worse and worse, I think, I have to say, with social media. Although social media is a great tool, I think, unfortunately, it's also starting to affect our own self-image. So vanity always comes before health, right? That's always been the case, but more so now, because unfortunately, we have a lot of young people also who are aspiring to the images that they're seeing on Instagram and so on. And everybody wants to have all the likes, and everybody wants to be, acknowledged and recognized. And while there can be some benefit to being somebody who has something important to share, I think that it's also important to understand that, the outside, the shell, we've borrowed our bodies also, like you spoke about earlier. It's not just that we've borrowed material things that we're paying for, thinking they belong to us. There's this misconception that this body belongs to me. And
it's rented.
Right. It's rented. And so this is the only place you have to live, really. So if you're going to take your car for a tune-up, why wouldn't you make sure you do the same with respect to maintenance and, looking at your body? But most of us are too focused on the outside. How does my skin look? How does my hair look? Do I, am I, skinny enough? Do I have the six-pack? What have you? But when we look at the health from a cellular perspective, that's what determines whether or not you're healthy. And whatever's happening on a cellular level is what's going to manifest. So if your cells are unclean, dirty, toxic, it's going to manifest physically because you're going to become sick at some point, right? Or you're going to shorten your lifespan at some point. So I think for me, that's the difference, is that it's when I speak, I've spoken many times about anti-aging, which I also don't like that term because I prefer to call it aging gracefully. I've spoken many times about skin health and beauty from a naturopathic perspective. And people are surprised because they think I'm going to tell them about which cream and which lotion and which natural thing to put on their body. But I'm always talking about the inside. What are you feeding yourself? Are you feeding yourself and your cells, or are you feeding the potential disease? What about your mind? Because what you eat, believe it or not, actually becomes the neurotransmitters in your brain, the chemicals in your brain that determine, first of all, not just your mood, but your personality.
Yeah.
So what are you feeding? Okay, so that's kind of my definition of it. And you will appreciate this, that there are foods that are on the lower vibration when we talk about frequencies. And we want to eat foods that are on higher vibrations to maintain higher frequencies, especially from an energetic, metaphysical, spiritual level. And that's why being vegetarian or eating more plant-based is what is going to help us get there, because those are higher vibration foods.
Yeah. 100%. It doesn't. I mean, the truth is that I think I love what Irene said when she talks about that. Everybody thinks that we just know how to eat, but the truth is we have to learn how to eat as well. And learning that is an important function because of exactly what you just said. So tell me a little bit then, Faryal, what's happening in the world of what are sort of some of the things you're seeing? Talk a little bit about Poutine Nation said hopes that poutine is at least a medium vibration food.
In this group, we'll let it be medium vibration.
That's right. Well done, Poutine Nation. You heard it here live on the Coffee and Biscotti show. Poutine is a medium vibration food. But tell me a little bit what's happened. Let's talk just quickly, if we can, Faryal, about COVID and understanding about COVID. And what have you been talking about with regards to this craziness that has shut down the world? You know that in Canada, your former country, we're still in stage 2 opening here in Ontario. And it's like restaurants are suffering and, tell me a little bit about COVID and what's been going on.
I'd like your thoughts on that too, because to be honest with you, Mel, and I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but I think we're dealing with something that we still don't know very well. And unfortunately, while the powers that be are really trying to protect people and trying to stop the spread, I think some of the measures are actually causing a bit more harm, like these shutdowns and so on.
Yeah.
On the other hand, right, my question always has been when I've spoken about it to say that, how come some of us are getting COVID and are having really bad symptoms? Some of us are being hospitalized and put on ventilators. Some of us have died. And some of us got COVID and didn't even know we had it. Our body just resolved it. We just found out by accident because we had to do a test. Right? What's the reason? And the reason is, just like with everything else, it's that if those people who unfortunately are the ones having the harder times are the ones with the chronic diseases. So anybody who is obese, anybody who is diabetic, anybody who has any kind of cardiovascular health problem, any chronic disease, they don't have the internal resources to be able to mount an immune response to deal with this thing. And part of the reason is because nobody's taught them how to eat. Nobody's taught them, how to incorporate nutrition into their lifestyles to perhaps get over the disease. I mean, people don't realize that, at the end of the day, if you're, for example, diabetic, and if you really wanted to reverse it, you could reverse it. I've done it for dozens and dozens of people. The problem is we don't have a healthcare system. We have a sick care system. So people getting sick who think they're going to get their healthcare taken care of, and they are. I'm really not trying to knock conventional doctors here. It's not their fault because that's their training. But they're never getting out of the system. They're locked into a system of continuous drug use and more drugs and getting sicker and sicker. And so then their bodies also become overwhelmed. right? If you're somebody who is doing some of the things that I talk about all the time, so movement, doing some kind of exercise that allows you to get your heart rate up and you're sweating a bit, doing some kind of mindfulness based practice, whether it's meditation, deep breathing, whatever it is that you like, walking in nature. I think walking in nature is one of the best things that you can do. I've spoken a lot about a Japanese practice called Shinrin Yoku. Maybe the audience might know about it, which is forest bathing, which is going into a forest and just having a nice walk, hugging the trees, sitting on the ground, breathing in all the essential oils that are coming off the trees and the plants, listening to the birds, listening to the rustling of the leaves, literally bathing yourself in these forest elements, because it is a huge buffer against stress and it's a huge booster for immunity, right? So things like that. Are you drinking enough water? This is one of the things that people just don't pay attention to. I could do a whole talk on that. How much water is a person drinking? Because this is really important. And then, as I said, nutrition is key. And then I've spoken, which I can share with you here. What are some of my top natural medicines or supplements that I think everybody should be taking in this climate right now?
Cool. And in terms of COVID specifically, I mean, what are we talking about, Faryal, when we talk about, what's it attacking? I mean, I know that people are suffering from thing, but this is just another virus that has come to be. But for some reason, this virus stuck out more than any other kind of virus that we get, because that's what the anti-vaxxers, the conspiracy theorists have said. We lose more people in the flu every year than we've done with COVID. So there is, but it does get you thinking a little bit. So why do you think that this particular strain of virus was like, why is it so big? Why is this considered a global pandemic? I still don't really understand.
I mean, it's a global pandemic because unfortunately, this particular virus has two things. It is pretty much it's silent and it's swift. So what that means is you just don't know. It's not like you would get symptoms right away by contracting it. Some people don't know for days, and in the meantime are infecting others. The other thing is it's swift. It's got what's called a virulence factor. Virulence means how quickly it's contagious, and it's quite aggressive. And it's a virus that does what viruses do, which is to mutate. And so when they mutate, they become even more sort of infectious, or they can, be more aggressive, or they can spread faster, as we've heard about all these variants coming from different countries. So this is the thing with COVID that's different, I think, from the flu virus, is that it's just a lot more aggressive, and the virulence factor is greater. And it's impacting or infecting the upper respiratory system. So you breathe it in, and what it's doing is it is attaching to what we call the pneumocytes, the cells of the lungs, and it's creating a big problem with people being able to obviously breathe. What I will mention is that with COVID, a lot of people aren't actually worsening and succumbing to the disease. They're succumbing to something called the cytokine storm that happens when you're infected with COVID and your immune system mounts a hyper response. So normally when you get sick, you've got, bronchitis, or you get like a flu or a cold, or you stub your toe, let's say, or you cut yourself. The body has a built-in system to send all these inflammatory mediators to the area where there's a problem to try to resolve it. And these inflammatory mediators could be anything from your white blood cells, natural killer cells, interleukins, macrophages. Macrophages, if people remember from like biology in high school, they go and they're like the Pac-Man that go and eat up the virus or the bacteria or the pathogen and destroy it and get it out of the system. And this is important. This is how the body resolves inflammation. This is healthy. But in a person whose system is overwhelmed, they have sort of like an unhealthy or an exaggerated immune response. And so all these immune mediators are called cytokines, and they flood the area. And when they flood the area, it's like they have a loudspeaker, let's say, and they say, hey guys, come join us, please help us. They recruit more cytokines to say, come. help us fight this thing. And so unfortunately, the cytokines then create more damage. They create more damage because it becomes this spiral, out of control immune response that creates what we call leakage in the lungs. And that's the difficulty with the breathing. And that's where you get this sort of what we call the respiratory distress. Okay.
Wow.
So it's a bit of both. It's the virus itself that is attaching. And, if somebody does not have a healthy immunity or immune response and they have chronic disease, they're going to be more affected. And then on top of it, if their immune response is like creating an overwhelming response, then it's creating more damage.
So can you talk then to, so what should we be doing? Like what should we be doing? I know that we were gonna talk a little bit about immune health. So let's go there. Let's go. Like, what do we need to do?
Well, I think first things first, you got to look at your diet. You got to look at what it is that you're putting into your body. If you're eating, processed foods, if you're eating foods from packages or, cans, if you can't really pronounce the ingredients on the back of a food product, that means unfortunately that it's full of chemicals. It's probably full of things that are artificial, and there's no place for that in your body because your body doesn't know what to do with it. Right. And you're going to create a toxic burden. On top of that, if you're taking medications, unfortunately, anytime you're taking a chemical drug, you are going to increase the toxic burden. We are already exposed to toxins all around us between the environment and the pollution and things happening in the food industry, which I think is a topic for another day. But,
another big one.
Yeah, like if you're eating meat, is that meat conventionally factory farm raised, force fed grains, pumped with antibiotics and hormones? Or is it pasture fed, grass fed, grazing, happy cows, let's say, right? So all of these things have to be considered. And then, water, as I said, you got to be hydrating because things need to be flushed out. Are you aware of how many times you go to the toilet for a bowel movement? Because whatever the body doesn't need, it needs to get rid of. If it doesn't get rid of it, it recirculates in the system and it becomes more toxic. Okay. Then we need to look at movement because we are not meant to just we are supposed to move. So I'm not talking about spending 2 hours at the gym. I'm just talking about doing, whatever it is that makes you happy, dancing, housework, just put a little bit more effort into it. Go for a walk, a brisk walk. If you like to lift weights, which is a good thing, do that. Yoga, Muay Thai, whatever, right? Yeah, absolutely. And then, I think that when you do that, you got to address your stress. So you have to start thinking about what kinds of things are creating stress in your life. What are the stressors? We can't get rid of stress, but we have to watch our response to the stress because stress is actually the beginning of many inflammatory conditions. And this is why stress reducing techniques are so important to incorporate in your daily routine. I talk a lot about journaling. For years and years, I've been talking about like free stream or conscious stream journaling, which is where you just write at the end of the day and you just write. There's no grammar, there's no punctuation. You're just getting everything out of your system that's in your brain onto paper. Gratitude journals are another one, right? Just thinking about and really being grateful for a couple of things every day before you go to sleep. And sleep is huge. We are facing another epidemic with sleep because people honestly think it's a waste of time. And sleep is so critical for filling our tanks, replenishing, doing this internal cleanup while we're sleeping. Like sleep is not this impartial, neutral thing. There's so much going on while we're sleeping. Right. And you were saying that you've, been doing some stuff to help you sleep better. And you realized that probably for 40 years of your life, you never really slept. Right. And it's
Not the way I have
important.
now.
Yeah, so important. So these are the things that, are not just for general health, but these are the things that are going to boost our immunities. On top of that, we need to focus on eating a lot of antioxidants, things that are basically in all of our vegetables, fruits, because you just got to eat the rainbow and make sure as much as possible that it's organic, which means it hasn't been sprayed with pesticides and herbicides. Self-care, so important. I think you and I, definitely agree on that, because I mean, it's been a tough, well, we're looking at 2 years now. It's been a tough 2 years. I remember that it had been, I used to be somebody who would get a massage like every month, once a month at least. And I hadn't had a massage for like 8 months, and it's important to do these self-care things,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So from the immunity point of view, if you're not already doing things like taking a good quality high dose vitamin C, zinc is so important, because there are tons of studies showing us now that it actually has the ability to inhibit the replication of the virus. So when the virus infects your cell, it uses your own cell's machinery. It hijacks our own cell to then multiply. But zinc stops that process. Omega-3s are another one, and vitamin D. So another thing that I would tell people is, when it comes to immunity and in this climate, when was the last time you had a good comprehensive blood work panel done? So naturopathic doctors are different again, because we look at things holistically and very comprehensively, and our interpretation of lab values differs from the conventional way of looking at things. So for example, I mean, this may have been, many of you might have experienced this, where your blood sugar levels are high, the doctor sees the report and doesn't do anything about it. And the thinking is, well, I'm going to wait until you are diabetic and then I'll treat you. Then I'll give you the drugs. That's not what we do. If I start to see that your blood levels are creeping up and our reference ranges are tighter, so what would be high for me would actually be normal for a conventional doctor. I will start treating you now to make sure that you don't get that diagnosis. So vitamin D is another one, unfortunately, and I've written posts about this as well, that all of us, believe it or not, in these countries that are full of sunshine, South Africa, Dubai, where I am, Saudi Arabia, we have the most deficient levels of vitamin D.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
How?
Because first of all, there's this I guess misconception that if you're spending time in sun, you're going to increase your chances of skin cancer, number one. Now, that's not untrue, but you have to have sensible sun exposure. And I want to emphasize that. And all it needs to be is hands and face, 15, 20 minutes a day in the sort of mid-morning sun or mid-afternoon sun, not when the sun is really high. If you're going to spend 5 or 6 hours in the sunlight, then yes, make sure that you're sensible about it and use, wear long sleeves or what have you. The other problem is that there's this overuse of sunblock. So when you're blocking the skin from absorbing the rays, which then get converted into vitamin D by the liver and the kidneys, how's that going to happen?
Right.
Not going to happen. In these countries, in the Middle East, the cultural dress, because it's about modesty, women are wearing the long, what we call abayas, and covering up, and some are covering the head and even the face. Like you've seen the ones that, only the eyes are exposed. Men also cover up. So they're out and about, but the sun is not getting to them. Culturally, there are people that don't, I hate to say this, but people don't want their skin to get darker.
Of course.
Right? Not like us Canadians who love it. But you know what I'm saying? So at least in Canada, we understand that being part of the Northern Hemisphere, where we have winter half the year, we are going to be D deficient. But here, where there's sunshine all the time, it shouldn't be the case. So vitamin D is critical for so many processes in our body. It is important for heart health. It's important. It's a huge protector against breast, colon, prostate cancer. It's important for, our skin. If you've got any skin issues, anybody who ever comes in to see me with like acne, psoriasis, eczema, vitamin D is one of the first things that I give them, along with omega-3. And it's so important for mental health. You mentioned mental health. It's critical for our mental health right now. But there's tons of research showing now that vitamin D, most of the people who've been hospitalized and who have died from COVID, when their vitamin D levels were checked, they were really deficient compared to people who've been able to overcome it. So
Interesting.
get tested, get the right tests done and get tested. is what I would say is another thing that people should be doing
Yeah.
to understand where they are, in this whole spectrum, and to know that there's lots of things you can do to enhance your health.
Fabulous. Well done. Another mic drop. I just want to also open it up, to the audience, that if they had any questions for the doctor, to please put them in the chat. I know that Albert just said, we've been taking vitamin C and D regularly since the pandemic started. We will add zinc. Is there a particular kind, Faryal, that you think, or does it really matter? Is there like a brand? Are there professional companies like Genestra or some of these other kind of professional lines that are better?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I would definitely suggest that you don't buy your natural medicines like from your everyday pharmacy, because unfortunately that is not where you're going to find the professional brands and high quality sort of nutrient or natural medicine companies. So go to a health food store. And zinc, yes, usually I will say zinc picolinate, because all these minerals are attached to a salt. So picolinate is what I would say. And I don't usually like to give doses, but for general use, we would say between 15 milligrams and 30 milligrams a day.
Okay.
So I would definitely add that right away, because zinc is also very important for anything going on with the throat. So of course, when you breathe in the virus, it's going to first touch the throat. But if you've got zinc, the zinc will not allow it to continue to progress. Or if it does, it will help to fight it. And vitamin D, you got to first get tested to know how to dose. So I have a lot of patients saying to me, oh, I take a 1,000 IUs or 2,000 IUs a day. That's not enough at all. I'm currently on myself, I'm taking 1,000, and that's still with being in the sunshine when I can. But I test myself. Every 5-6 months. And because, like I said, levels of what we consider to be optimal, I'm not looking at having a person just being able to stand. I want them to be optimal.
That's right. Exactly. You don't want to just drive the car. You want it to be a high performance car.
You got it.
Of course. So we got a question, Faryal, from Albert, his wife. How does one remain hopeful during recovery from chronic pain?
Yeah, that is very hard, because pain is so difficult on our ability to be able to stay hopeful and stay positive, so I do get it. I think prayer, if you're someone who is able to connect with the divine force, whatever that may be for you. And Mel, I'm sure you can talk a little bit about this as well, just what you would coach your clients to say on this particular question. I really think that each of us has to acknowledge that we are connected to the universe on a bigger scale, that we're not like little islands, right? We're all connected. So I think just having that and working on that and building that is important. Support system. So who is the support system in your particular family? Because that's important. As husband and wife, sometimes the spouse cannot be everything for the other spouse. Sometimes they do need a different person to help with some of the mental emotional support, because this is also going to then overwhelm that spouse who is trying to be the caretaker and the psychologist and the, everything, right? So I think that's important. Support system, making sure that you maintain your social connections, which has been a big problem during the pandemic.
Yes.
I have had many people so sadly, complain about feeling isolated, depression, anxiety, because of the isolation, especially the elderly people. And that's why I'm saying, although I appreciate some of the measures, I feel like in some ways we've exchanged one problem for another.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm in 100% agreement. I mean, I do believe that this virus is something serious. My mother had COVID. We have friends that had friends pass. I mean, I think I know about 10, believe it or not, of people. I didn't know them directly, but friends of friends that have passed. And so it has caused so many sort of alternative issues that come from doing, and one of them is mental health and being
Yeah.
isolated and being alone. 100%.
I mean, this is going to be our next pandemic. Actually, it's a pandemic within a pandemic, right? As
Yep.
people have said.
Yep.
So I know in Dubai alone, we've had a significant number of mental health clinics opening up just during this time because there's such a need for it. So that's what I would say is we've got to take care of our mental, emotional health. I think that there's this misconception out there that if you're not looking out, to look after yourself, to do nice things for yourself is selfish. And yeah, you have to be selfish in order to be selfless. You have to be. Otherwise, you're not going to be useful to yourself or anybody else.
And that's why you're on the show, because we vibrate at the exact same frequency, because that's exactly what I talk about. All of this, Faryal, all of what you're saying is quite remarkable because, I've got a few clients that are on, and, one of the biggest things for me as a clarity coach is for people to get clarity on what it is that they want. What do you want? Get clear on it so you can start doing the things that you want to do. There was always 3 questions that were asked, and this is a tribute to Francesco Biscotti from Biscotti Consulting, and my choice theory mentor, when he said, you just got to ask 3 questions in your life. What do you want? What are you doing? And do they match? Those are very simple questions. What do you want? What are you doing? And do they match? Because if they don't, then something needs to change.
That's so interesting, right? Because in a way it sounds so simple, but it's not. It takes a lot of self-reflection, soul searching, and that's why someone like you is so critical in this process, because we already have the answers, but we need somebody to connect the dots for us, and we need somebody to kind of be the beacon for us, right? To help us. And even in my own case, like just to go back full circle to the beginning, though I'm very passionate about what I do, which I hope it shows, and I love what I do, at the end of the day, when I first started in this field and when I was looking to study as a naturopathic doctor, I got a lot of resistance from friends, resistance from people who kept saying to me, well, why don't you just become a real doctor, right? You got that a lot. And even my family was like, well, Faryal, what are you doing? Like, are you sure you're going to succeed? Do you think there's a need for it? Now we're talking 2003, that's when I graduated. So 1999 is when I went into naturopathic medical college. So we're talking easily, what is that? Like 15, well, I've been in practice for 17 years now, right? So, I resisted that resistance. That's not easy. So when we're looking for clarity, as you said, sometimes you have to go against the current. I did that. When I wanted to get married to my husband, I had a lot of people around saying to me, this is crazy. What are you doing? To both of us. Why are you going to marry somebody in another continent? You don't really know enough about what it's like to live there, this and that, and the next thing. But in my heart, I did the work. I did the asking the universe. I let my family also be part of my process because they are the ones who will always be there for me and pick up the pieces for me. And we went against convention, and here we are. So seeking clarity is so important, but you have to also be able to find the strength within, to say, okay, this may not be conventional, what I want to do. I'm going to fight the resistance because it's what I believe in.
All right, did you hear that, guys? Resist the resistance. Somebody write it down. That's the quote. That's the hashtag. Resist.
I don't get a third mic drop.
Yeah, another mic drop. Resist the resistance.
But I want to go back a little bit to, I think it was Donatician. I really like what she said there. Or is it a he or she? I think you said she. About, it could have been your title, inflammation mediator. I'm not sure why it still can't be your title. I actually call myself the inflammation hunter. So, you can do it.
Yeah. Well, I think she and Donatician wrote, like all professionals, there are some folks in each group that see more holistically and some who see more narrowly. I've met some incredible holistic traditional medical practitioners in my years in the clinical space. Those of us that see a bigger picture can lead in collaboration with those that see more narrowly. Instead of us versus them, we say we.
Correct. And that's where I'm at. Exactly. But it's still 17 years going. I've met the resistance with the, other side. And I'm still standing strong, defending what I do because I love what I do and I've seen it work. And if it didn't work, I wouldn't be in 3 different countries, right?
I love it. Albert Wong just did it. Oh, she just did it, Faryal. Hashtag inflammation hunter. Love it.
Yeah, so great to see you guys on here engaging the way you are. I'm so happy to see that also. And I thank you all for all your comments and, just everything that you're saying. It's wonderful.
Well, it's an alignment. And I mean, this is what the show is for. A lot of these people that are here were actually guests on the show. So that kind of interaction, you can tell because it's about frequency. So the way that I explain this, and I do this almost every week, Faryal, but I say that we are like receivers, or like a radio. So the biggest thing that we've come to uncover, even with some of my clients, is that if you're vibrating at 99.9, which is the radio station in Toronto, 99.9, but you want to change that level, you want to change the dial, you want to go up the frequency. Well, there's shit that has to happen. There's shit that you need to do to be able to change that frequency. And you know what? How I nicely put it together in the bow? You have to do something called self-love. It's very simple. Self-love. Because I've coined a line recently that is, awareness is the result of self-love. Because as you change the frequency, there's a number of things that happens. So here's what happens, Faryal, and you'll appreciate this as a doctor. You change the frequency, and what happens is that from an emotional standpoint, the stuff that's going on 99.9 doesn't affect the emotional state of somebody who's vibrating at 102.5.
Absolutely.
Because we've transcended that emotional state. There's so much that happens at 102.5. There's superpowers that start to emerge. Your God-given talents start to emerge. Your gifts get honed in. You hone in and you start to have really good focus on some of those gifts that you have. And that's why
I think, no, you're absolutely right. And I also think another issue that a lot of us have, and that's why there's so much suffering in the world, whether it's because of disease, whether it's because of heartbreaks, relationships, and so on, is because a lot of us have not gotten in tune with our own intuition, which we all have.
Of course.
And I think when you dial up, as you said, and you do the work, you're able to then reconnect and reacquaint yourself with someone that's been living inside you all this time, whose only best interest at heart is you. And you're able to then harness and really help your intuition to guide you. So I think that's also part and parcel of that self-awareness, because you can't unknow what you know. Once you know
Exactly.
it, you can't unknow it, right? So, I mean, I appreciate that. I loved your analogy also about being the TV guy.
Yeah.
That was a fantastic, post that you did there.
Yeah.
And resonated a lot with me. And I think that you're absolutely right. It's not just about the channel. It's also about the color. It's also about the
contrast, the brightness.
Contrast.
Of course. And that's what you do. That's what you do as a doctor in terms of seeing, looking at a medical problem. You're trying to adjust the various dials so that they, from a health perspective, from a spiritual perspective, from an emotional perspective, you're adjusting all these dials so that they can become better versions of themselves.
For sure. And, I've had patients who've come in who've basically, when you talk to them and they're having headaches, they're not sleeping well, they're gaining weight, all these things are happening. And okay, we do the testing and we do this and that and look at their diet. But ultimately, I do a lot of counseling. And then I find out, asking all the right questions, that they're either in a really terrible marriage or they're in a really terrible job. So I can do all the things I can do, right, to help you with these so-called manifestations, but what's the root cause?
That's right. If your path is here, Faryal, if your path is here, As we go through life, we have experiences, that trauma, that trigger, that get stored in the subconscious. And what ends up happening is we start going off path because we have a relationship, they cheated on us, we got brokenhearted, we have terrible jobs, my boss treated me like shit, and all of a sudden we veer off path. So what I say to people is that in order for you to get back onto the path, you have to do some self-love. You must give self-love in order for you to get back so that you can be realigned with what you should be doing.
Which is hard work, because we're dealing with
Hard
societal
work.
expectations, we're dealing with
Yes.
cultural expectations, we're dealing with myself as I'm a woman, I'm Muslim, and I'm from an Indian background. That's
The trifecta.
the trifecta, like killer combo, right? In terms of expectations, in terms of how I'm supposed to live my life and who I'm supposed to be with and what kind of job I should have and how I should dress and how I should conduct myself in life and situations. And I've been unconventional in all of those because whatever has happened and whatever traumas I've experienced in my life. I mean, at the end of the day, ain't nobody paying my bills. Well, my husband is, but you know what I'm saying? So we all have to, for me, what's really important as a naturopathic doctor is that I have to live an authentic life that is congruent with what I'm telling my patients.
Donatician, you do this very well. This is exactly what we're talking about. I love it.
I don't want to miss some of the questions here, Mel. If we can just, I think Albert, it is, that's asking.
Yes. He just said, what supplements are you using to treat COVID? Some naturopaths we know use NAC, zinc, vitamin C and D, and quercetin.
Quercetin, yeah. So you're talking to the right kind of people because I use all of those as well. Absolutely. Obviously, dosing will be different for each individual because it's individualized. I also use botanicals, so herbs. I use a lot of herbs, herbal medicine. And my absolute favorite, like I would have to say a couple of favorite ones would be turmeric, 100%, because turmeric has an affinity for the lungs. It goes straight to the lungs and helps to deal with what's going on there. And it's highly anti-inflammatory. It's a powerful antioxidant. It's also really good for liver health. I think you mentioned about chronic pain. This is a big one. Anti-inflammatory, really should incorporate.
Mm-hmm.
And then I use ginger. Ginger is very powerful. So just slicing or grating off a few slivers of ginger and steeping it in hot water, drinking it as a tea, really powerful. Ashwagandha. I don't know if you guys might have heard of ashwagandha. You've got ginger tea there?
No, I got my water though.
Yeah. Ashwagandha is another Ayurvedic herb. It's actually nicknamed the Indian ginseng. And it's a powerful immune modulator. It's really powerful for just stress. So it helps to kind of build up our resilience against stress. And if you're highly stressed, automatically you're depleting your immune system.
Yep.
So those would be some of the ones I would look to as well. And probiotics. You got to get the microbiome. That's our defense also, which you know a lot about.
Added herbs, turmeric, ginger.
Ganda. That's
yes,
the first time I've heard it like that. Cool.
Yeah.
Ashwagandha, yeah.
Ashwagandha. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Albert. Thank you for the question. If there's anybody else that would like to ask anything, please do not hesitate. This is the time. I could use this show even for me, but I mean, I'll tell you, Faryal, there was a reason for my change as well in doing some of the things that I did, but I was really suffering from 25 years of mixed martial arts and Muay Thai with low testosterone, which was really bad, like dangerously low. Sort of this hereditary thing about having high cholesterol and an underworking thyroid. And it's just like, I did do some changes. I didn't go to the doctor for pills for my thyroid. They said, why don't you just take 1 cc of steroids, like of testosterone?
What? Okay.
Yeah, this is what they recommend. And to be honest with you, I didn't know any better. For a little while, I did it.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden I said, you know what? I'm going to do some things. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take these products from this company in the States that talks about microbiomes. I'm going to do a fruit challenge and only eat fruit for 30 days. I'm going to do the no FAP challenge, so I'm not going to have any release for 30 days. And I just did really, Faryal, I did all these things. And I tell you that I'm talking to you now as a different man. I've been a professional athlete that fought in Thailand for the king's birthday in Chiang Mai. The point of bringing this up is to only say that I'm not working out the way that I was before, not even close. I was running 72 kilometers a week in Thailand, not a year, a week.
Wow.
I was doing some serious road work. I was training 6 hours a day. But here's the thing. I feel healthier now even than when I did back then. That's the most remarkable thing. I was fit, but I'm more healthy now.
But you weren't healthy. And you probably depleted your adrenal glands. You depleted your hormonal, balance. That unfortunately created that havoc there. And I'm glad that you were able to address it, though. Yes, it would have been better to have addressed it sooner. Having said that, the herb I mentioned, ashwagandha, also is very helpful for helping with testosterone, by the way.
Yeah.
So yes, I understand what you're saying. And so you're a clear example of how your experience in going to a conventional doctor and what they asked you to do, and then what you ended up doing and how you feel.
On my own.
But you had to go through that process.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. So our dear friend, my brother from a different mother, Puti Nation, can you speak to what you learned in studying pharmacology with respect to the efficacy of drugs when they are actually approved on the formularies in terms of what that means or doesn't mean for what percentage of the population they generally work for? Wow. That's a question there, Josh. That's a serious question. No, because he did say something that I didn't read out. I don't know if you saw it, Faryal, but he said, when you were giving the whole leaky roof analogy, he said, yeah, but the doctor also doesn't tell you that this works 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. So no, I read that. I was going to say, that's absolutely true. So, how can I answer this question? The thing is, we have something in pharmacology or pharmacy, or when we're looking at drugs and how they work, called need to treat, right? Or they're looking at what's called the sort of threshold you have to meet without killing somebody. Okay. So, if you think about that, what does that mean? It just means, well, out of a certain population, how many of these people taking this particular drug are okay and are managing their disease? It doesn't mean that they are cured of their disease. It doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have the disease anymore, but that they're managing, they're doing okay, and they're not dead from taking the drug. Okay. So I'm really simplifying it here. It's a lot more complicated than that.
Right.
But the idea is that, that's what we're looking at. If you think about it from the point of view of the COVID vaccines right now, as a naturopathic doctor, it has been extremely challenging and difficult for me to reconcile with the idea of taking a vaccine for something that we don't know what we're dealing with still. We're still learning a lot about this virus. It's a novel virus, and some of the technologies being used for the vaccines are also novel. So, for example, the Pfizer or Moderna vaccines are using what's called an mRNA technology that's never been used on humans before. So the reality is, until people use it and until we've had a couple of years of people having the vaccines, we don't have the long-term data, because we first need the people to take the vaccine to get the long-term data. So at the end of the day, what are the vaccines approved for? 2 things: that it's going to prevent a hospitalization and it's going to prevent death. That's it. It's not about helping you recover, because as you know, people who are already vaccinated are still able to contract the virus, are still able to infect others. I know tons of people. And right now I'm in Dubai. When I go to Saudi Arabia, I will have to, although I'm going to get the vaccines, I will still have to do PCR tests before I leave, PCR test upon arrival, PCR test 7 days later. So what is the point of that? what is the point of saying, do the PCR tests? No,
Oh,
I'm just saying, like
yeah,
I'm
you're
struggling
right.
to understand that, because if I'm vaccinated, you're telling me that I've got a certain amount of protection, then why all the PCR tests, right? On the other hand, no, I don't want to end up in the hospital and I don't want to end up dead, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to have a severe case of COVID, even though I'm vaccinated. So I'm just using that as an example when we talk about drugs, that yes, your genetics actually play a role. So we can do DNA testing now to see, based on the drugs you're taking, whether those drugs are actually working for you, because your genes play a role. Certain kinds of people don't respond to certain kinds of pharmaceuticals,
Right.
especially when we talk about things like chemotherapy for cancer. And then there are those drugs that, hopefully have a very low side effect profile or what have you. So I don't know if I'm answering the question, because it's not something where it's like black and white. And
Yeah,
as
for
long as
sure.
you're taking a chemical, for the chemical drug to work quickly to fix problem A, there's a potential it's going to create problem B, C, and D.
Of course. Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
So drugs are necessary. Like I said, I do think that, we've got amazing advances in surgeries and other technologies for life-threatening things. I think this is really important. My issue is when we have doctors who are prescribing antibiotic after antibiotic after antibiotic for people for something that, could have been taken care of, let's say, with some of the things we've talked about today, with looking at their diet, with looking at their mental emotional health, with looking at what is creating the problem in the first place. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had cancer patients whose oncologists have told them, you can eat whatever you want, it doesn't matter,
Of course. Yeah.
while you have the cancer and while you're getting the treatment.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not really, an intelligent way of looking at health, right? I mean, seriously.
I gotta laugh because I'm thinking to myself, like, are you for real? This is what you're like a, you're an oncologist. You've got all this education, but it's just a general comment. It's just like they don't want to get involved with understanding that. So
Well,
they
it's
just
their
say,
training.
yeah, you
It's
can
their
do whatever you
training.
want. Eat sugar all you want. It's good for the
Yeah.
cancer.
But
Like,
yeah,
really?
yeah. Look, and again, in their defense, that's how they've been trained. Um, Whether they want to open up their minds and look at other ways that I believe are more intelligent, like I said, and when we spoke the other day, there's no reason why the two approaches can't be integrated. And we do have many, many wonderful doctors who do integrate both, and that's great. But I'm definitely open minded when I'm working with other health practitioners, as long as they're open minded when they're working with me, because it doesn't matter what I want or what they want. What's important is what the patient wants.
Right. Yeah. Bravo. Bravo, sister. Yeah, because this is exactly it. This is exactly what I felt about all these systems. I mean, to be honest with you, Faryal, in the world of metaphysics, we used to say that these systems are not created by the light. Because if you look at all of the systems that exist, the educational system, what is it there to teach you to do? To teach you to be good sheep. If you're
Oh,
talking about the media system, the media, you're talking about what sells and numbers. We're not talking about what's good or what's bad. The stories that sell are all the bad stories. We want to know what happened with the serial killer that happened. That's what we want to know. We don't want to know about the guy who helped the lady cross the street, because that's not really what sells. If you talk about the pharmaceutical industries, you say it. I mean, you're the expert on it. These are, and this is part of Putin Nation's question, that they're not there to get to the root cause of anything. They're there to manage pain and manage the illness, not to cure it.
yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, and then you look at it, doesn't matter. You look at the banking system. I got a great story for you, but I remember going into our bank. So I don't know if I ever told you this, but you know the
Yeah,
bank, and you probably
yeah.
know the guy. There was this black guy there. I think his name was Michael. But I
Uh-huh.
just remember, Faryal, he said, I had some money in the bank. I was thinking about, maybe purchasing a property. And I just remember him saying, "Hey, Krumel, you got to come and sit with me, man. I kind of want to give you the spiel. Let me just sit with me 5 minutes. So I said, okay, brother, whatever you want me to do, man, I'll sit with you. So he sits with me, Faryal, and this is a guy I know. We know him for sure, but he sits with me and he says, "So Mel, I understand that you're thinking about purchasing a property. Are you thinking to do that within the next 6 to 12 months?" And he gives me, "Well, Mel, what I suggest is that we should take it, put it into some GICs and he's giving me his whole spiel, and I listened, Faryal. I listened.
Yeah.
You know what I said to him? I said, "Hey, Michael, can I ask you a question?" He says, "Absolutely." I said, "Are you a millionaire?" And he said, "No." I said, "So then why would I listen to you?" And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, listen, I want to be a millionaire." And he says, "So if you're not a millionaire, that means that you don't know how to become a millionaire. So then why the heck would I listen to your financial
For
advice?"
you.
Anyways,
Oh my
he just went, "Holy shit." He said, "No one's ever said that to me before."
Oh, shame.
But I said, "Listen," I said, "not for anything, brother, but if I want to become a good soccer player, I'm going to go hang out with soccer players that are better than me so I can get better."
Correct.
So if you're making $65,000 a year, why do I want to listen to you?
Yeah.
So he said, "Oh, well, anyway, thanks for your time."
Oh, poor guy. But hopefully you planted a seed. I'd like to think that maybe somewhere in there you inspired him to think bigger,
Maybe,
you know?
maybe, but
But
it's
that was
it's
bold of you to say that. But only Mel could actually say that and get
right.
away, right? Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
because the truth is we were boys, like I used to see him. I mean, how many times did we go to that bank? It was across the street. I
Yeah.
mean, we went all the time. I went every week. I did my deposit. I knew everybody there. "Hey, Grubel, hey, how are you?" We would have a party. They would invite me for pizza parties at the bank. But
Really?
you know, the point.
Yeah.
But the point is that it's about an old expression that I still tell my students and clients all the time. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Hmm.
You're just in the wrong room. If you want to
No,
grow,
that's
if you want to
great.
evolve, if you want to
Yeah.
evolve, you have to be with people. So having you come on the show, I mean, I'm listening to you going, "Holy shit, she's smart. She's a real doctor for real, eh?" Like the way that you talk, the way that the words that you're using. But that's what you want. You want to be able to grow like that. You want to be able to, you want to be able to evolve. And so, sort of, for me, I've always subscribed to the philosophy. I think I lost her for a second. Hopefully, she'll be
Yeah.
back.
No,
Uh,
it's fine on my end. My camera is still on, but for some reason it's not showing up. I
that's
don't
okay.
know why.
But I've always, and I wrote this in the article, Faryal, that you talked about, that you sort of referenced the Krumel TV repair guy. But in it, I just said, I live and subscribe to two philosophies. That number one, I'm going to be a better person than I was yesterday, and number two, that I'm going to leave this planet a little better than when I found it. So that's really powerful to me. Um, so as we close the show, Faryal, can you tell us a little bit about what's happening? Like, is there a special project that you're working on? What's happening? And then, of course, where can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, sure. I can talk about that. I guess we won't be able to get this camera back on, hey?
I don't know. Maybe it just seems like the internet's a little bit low on the signal
It's showing
strength.
a good signal strength on my side, but that's fine as long as you
That's
can hear
okay.
me.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Um, Yeah, so I mean, there's always new and interesting things coming up in this region because they're really, really trying to kind of attract a more global sort of engagement. And even in Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia has been quite closed off to the rest of the world, but things are starting to change there. And there's been more and more of a need for what I'm doing. So there are some exciting things on the horizon. But ultimately, I think for me, it's just about sort of, I really believe I am where I'm supposed to be in that moment. And, that whoever is coming in my path, it's an exchange. It's two-way because they're going to get something from me that they need. And they're also going to be a teacher or they're going to, be a catalyst for me in something that I need to look at in my own life. That's how I view it. So that's pretty much it. Like being here with you is amazing because, you know, as we've known each other for so long, we've both grown in different ways. We've had our experiences. We were professionals. We've come together, and now we're sort of serving. We are in the space of serving, and like you said, hopefully leaving the world a better place. And that's kind of my passion. Like I have never turned a patient away, even if they couldn't pay me. You know, almost all my patients have access to me on WhatsApp, almost all of them. And we're talking of a lot of patients because it's not just in this country, right?
Of course.
And it's because I want them to know that, you know, they can reach out to me if there's something happening, and if I can help, I will always help. But then similarly, I've had a lot of people, you know, the most unlikely people who have helped me. And so I always acknowledge that, and I always am thankful, and it's full circle all the time. So that's kind of my story. And how can people find me? Well, you can find me on Instagram. My hashtag or whatever is Dr._Faryal_Luhar. You can find me if you just put my name into Google, you'll find my website. It's www.naturodrluhar.com. I think those are probably the two best ways to get a hold of me. From there, you'll be able to communicate and get emails and phone numbers and so on.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Maybe we can get Putti Nation. Faryal, can you click the camera on and off again, like at the bottom? Maybe you can sort of click on just to see if it comes back. And if it's not, it's okay, because it's almost like the perfect closing, if you will, to the show. But thank you. We're just going to share your...
Thank you, Putti Nation, for that.
Yeah. We'll share the sort of handle on Instagram. But thank you, Faryal, for spending some time with me and with all of us here at the Coffee and Biscotti show. Yeah, you can imagine, like, that was 90 minutes. Can you believe it?
No, I can't, because it was so much fun. Had such a great time.
Yeah, like I can't believe that 90 minutes goes so fast. But you're just that, like, you're so animated when you're talking about stuff that I don't even know, like, you know, about these you know, when you're talking about getting into the real science behind the cells. But I love it. I love it. I just think you're so passionate about it. It truly does sound like Latin, you know, but I love that you're so passionate about it. And for me, it's really, that's the purpose of this. You know, I'll reiterate again that, you know, Faryal, that's why this was created, why this platform, Putti Nation, was the one that motivated me, inspired me to come onto this platform, and you know, and really share, you know, my passion for, you know, connecting with people, and more importantly, getting an opportunity to share passions and transformative stories from people all around the world. So what an absolute honor it was to hang out with you. Thank you so much, Faryal. And what I'm going to do now is, like I always do, I will put you backstage and I will give my sort of final thoughts, and then we will sort of close the show from there.
Likewise, a huge thank you to you and to everybody that came on, and to anyone who's going to watch us in the future. Really appreciate. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Faryal. You're awesome. Love you lots, girl. I'm going to put you backstage for a moment. Boom! That's what I got to say about that. Edwin, 100X, nice to have you here. Thank you for joining us. What can I say, my friends? I love her. She's awesome. She uses the words. She has the energy. She brings that kind of energy, because I've also been her client. She helped me with a number of things in the past. And she just brings that kind of energy every time she works with a client, with a patient. And I love it. I love it. I really don't have much to say other than I absolutely love it. I love her. I love what she's doing. I love the energy she comes with. So I'm really grateful to Dr. Faryal Luhar for joining us today. Now, I'm in a bit of a pickle, guys, because normally I tell you who's on next week. But you know what, guys? It's summertime. It's not easy to get clients. So I'm going to sort of throw it out there. If you know someone that would be a great fit for the show, please send them to me. I know that Michael Adamachi was looking at a young woman who, a really young woman who's, I don't know, maybe a teenager or something. I don't even really know, but who is going through some challenges or has just beaten cancer or something. It's a remarkable story about bringing her on. So I don't know, my friends, but I don't have a guest for next week, but you know we will, because that's just what we do at the Coffee and Biscotti show. It's summer. I know I was actually thinking, Josh, whether or not I should run it for the summer or whether or not we should take some time. Either way, you know we'll be here next week at the same time on the Coffee and Biscotti show, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will be back next week with a surprise guest. So wherever you are in the world, I hope you have an awesome day. Two things. Make sure that you go out and share some energy with someone that you care about. That's how we started the show. And of course, make sure that you do something for you, something that really hits home for you. And that could be anything, but making sure that you exercise all 3 points of the triangle of body, mind, and spirit. So thank you again for another awesome show. For all that was in the audience, Edwin, Putin Nation, A.B. Wong, you're awesome. Thank you for the rooibos chai tea, uncaffeinated or decaffeinated tea this morning. It was awesome. And much love to everyone. We're off to see Lily K in NYC for some beats. Awesome. So that's where we're raiding off today. Much love to you and all yours. We're out for the Coffee and Biscotti show this week. Thank you so much. And much love to all of you and your families. We'll see you here next week. Peace.